Welcome back, and well, the XRP army is not going to be happy about this one because we now have former XRP engineers stating that this whole ISO 20022 compliance is all nonsense. This, as in my view, the Federal Reserve has set up the ultimate bull trap in the crypto ecosystem, as they have basically potentially maybe are telling the markets that they're going to cut rates in 2025. And regardless if the Federal Reserve does cut rates or not, cutting rates is different than money printing. And many people in the crypto ecosystem have confused the two and say, well, Federal Reserve Chairman Powell is going to cut rates, so the markets are going higher. There's no bear market, Cryptoviser. You're an idiot. The market's not over. The cycle's not over. And then, boom. Over $1.1 billion in Bitcoin outflows on the same week that Federal Reserve Chairman Powell potentially told the markets that they're going to be cutting rates. And so the market is in euphoria mode, as we have been talking about. A lot of people keep saying, Cryptoviser, there's no euphoria in the markets. It's like, based on one speech from one person about potentially doing something maybe in the future, maybe not, depending on data that's going to be coming out again in the future that we don't know what that data is going to look like. People are saying, no, Cryptoviser, no euphoria. And meanwhile, the market's just moved up based on all of that speculation. And that's kind of where we are in the cycle. And so in today's video, we're going to be exploring MicroStrategy, Bitcoin, Chainlink, XRP, the Ethereum reserves, and where we are in the cycle. Because to me, nothing has changed. A lot of people are saying, but Cryptoviser, you were wrong. Cryptoviser, the Federal Reserve is going to cut. Let's get into it. Don't forget to give this video a free thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button. That way you never miss a new video. We upload every single day of the year to bring you the latest happening in the financial world. Now, I read a post or saw a podcast the other day where somebody said something that made a lot of sense. They said, it doesn't matter whether people agree with you or disagree with you. It just matters whether the market only cares about whether you are right or you are wrong. The market has no other, indicators of care, right? And for you, it doesn't matter whether Cryptoviser is right. It doesn't matter whether Cryptoviser is wrong, right? Because the strategy that we're playing out on this channel is a winning strategy regardless. And all these people are saying, but Cryptoviser, you're wrong. We're going higher. MicroStrategy is going to do this. Federal Reserve is going to do this. You guys are putting your entire portfolio in the hands of one person, Michael Saylor, Tom Lee, MicroStrategy. This is euphoria in the markets, right? And you may not see it from a price perspective, but in a sentiment, it's there. And again, Wall Street, which is the big ETFs, massive outflows in the Bitcoin ETF. This does not seem like bullish sentiment. This does not seem like the smart money is positioning for multiple rate cuts. And even if they do get multiple rate cuts, that has no impact on crypto because rate cuts affect mortgages. Rate cuts affect borrowing to build businesses out. Rate cuts are not money printing. Money printing is the devaluation of the dollar. Money printing is the fiat currency thing, right? Consistent devaluation, consistent inflation. That is what Bitcoin goes higher based off of, not based on interest rates. That's a big thing that the entire market is getting wrong. Now, before we go into the individual cryptos that we're going to be talking about and kind of signals in the market, especially this XRP ISO 2022 compliance that literally the XRP army has been talking about for years. And I keep saying, why is XRP army the only ecosystem in crypto that is talking about it? Well, we're going to get into that in a minute because it may just be a whole big bullshit lie. Anyway, so Anna Wong, who's an economist over at Bloomberg, chief U.S. economist, she said, I think Jay Powell, the Federal Reserve Chairman, was not being dovish today, meaning light on the markets. And this is the sort of speeches that people will realize how hawkish or, non-accommodative it is with time to digest. And this kind of knee-jerk reaction, only to be reversed later, has happened before, and I would completely agree. As I say to people, if you don't believe what I'm saying about the Federal Reserve cutting rates has no impact on Bitcoin and the general markets that we're talking about, go look at 2020. We were in a very similar situation at the beginning of the year before the pandemic shut down, massive layoffs, all-time record highs in all markets. We were seeing people having very hard times finding jobs. And then the Federal Reserve said, no, we're not going to cut rates. We're not going to cut rates. We're not going to cut rates until we started to see shakiness. And at the beginning of March, a lot of people forget this. At the beginning of March 2020, the Federal Reserve had an emergency meeting and they did emergency rate cuts. And the market cratered. Go look. 2020 from February until the middle of March when the pandemic shutdown occurred. That was after rate cuts were done in an emergency fashion and the markets plummeted. And so this idea that just cutting rates is going to push the market higher is not true. Now, Anna Wong said one thing that Jerome Powell did was he gave a master class on how to straddle between placating political pressure, giving just enough hints of openness to cuts, which can be interpreted both ways, while laying the groundwork for hawkish response without appearing to do so. And again, hawkish response is no rate cuts or very little bit of rate cuts. And so Anna Wong says, my takeaway from Powell's speech is that September cut is still really down to forecasting the data, the CPI, the inflation, and the non-farms payroll, right? How many jobs are being created. True, the bias is somewhat in the direction of a cut, but I don't think the sureness in the market pricing accurately reflects the risk. Bingo, I completely agree with what she's saying here. You have to always anticipate risk reward, right? You can put a little bit of risk and get a little bit of reward, but sometimes the risk is not worth the reward, especially if it's small, right? Waiting may be better to offset that risk and then get more of a sure thing that we're going to the upside. Anyway, she continues saying, as a case in point, here's Bloomberg economist inflation and growth surprise index developed by this person. 66 indicators in growth and 33 indicators of inflation. Inflation follows growth as you see below. And now I zoomed in on the chart. Note now what happened since early July. So you can see the macro scale here. And then you get zoomed in and growth is blue, yellow is inflation. Growth is stagnant and inflation is rising. And so what is the Federal Reserve's mandate? Keep prices in line and jobs. And so far, all of that is looking like where it needs to be. And so this idea that the Federal Reserve is going to come and save the markets and save your portfolio and you're going to be a billionaire because the Federal Reserve cut rates. Sorry to tell you guys, we are at the end of the cycle. Days since the halving, right? So there's very little time left. And I believe that what we are seeing here with the movements in the market based on what one person says is just volatility. And volatility typically after a bear market is bullish, and volatility after a bull market is bearish. Now, there's a lot of people who think that we haven't even been in a bull market, even though we're at all-time record highs. But most of my viewers get it. You guys are very, very smart. Meanwhile, one of the MicroStrategy mega bulls, Dan, posted this. This is MicroStrategy ATM facility visualization. And basically, ATM is them selling shares on the open market to raise money to then go buy Bitcoin. And effectively, what you see, each line is the at-the-market sales. And so MicroStrategy, Michael Saylor, is literally, not figuratively, literally telling you where the top of the market is, because he's been selling the top of the market. He wasn't selling shares like this in the bear market. He's selling at the top, period. This is MicroStrategy to IBIT, which is basically the Bitcoin price. But he's been selling the top since 2024, 2025. And there's not really that much selling since then, because we're at lower prices, much, much lower prices. So this idea, again, that MicroStrategy is like, oh, this is so smart. He's going to keep buying and keep pushing the price up. Not really. He's selling the top of the market. But a lot of viewers don't believe this. Meanwhile, the biggest rug pull that I think is going to occur is this. And by the way, this is from February. I'm recording this in September. Strategy could be eligible for S&P 500 inclusion in June if Bitcoin closes Q1 above $96,000. Well, guess what, guys? June came and went, and there was no inclusion in the S&P 500. The bulls also put this out last year. Oh, as soon as they're on the new accounting principles where they're able to show their Bitcoin holdings as profit, boom, they're going to get included in the S&P 500. By the way, this is just the rumor, and the rumor from no official sources. In my view, they're not going to be included. A lot of other, analysts in the market believe the same thing. They just because you can change the accounting practices to make it look like you're actually in 10 to 30 billion dollars in profit in one quarter, when none of that is realized and it's all in an asset that is highly volatile in a bull market at all-time record highs. Guys, this is, as Jim Chano says, financial gibberish. And so here's where we're at with MicroStrategy is that the entire market is relying on MicroStrategy. There's a lot of people in MicroStrategy trade that are reliant on MicroStrategy, and everybody is anticipating this S&P 500 inclusion, including the mega bulls. But meanwhile, there's been no official confirmation of this, not even real official confirmations of maybe leaks that they're going to get included. And I personally don't think that they're going to be included 1 month or 1 quarter right after they're on their new accounting practices. But again, they were supposed to be included in June, but now it's September, then it's going to be December, then it's going to be 2026, then it's going to be 2027, and they're going to keep moving the goalposts. All these bulls are going to keep moving the goalposts. But in my view, this is the catalyst. I don't see how they're going to be included. And there's so many people that are anticipating this because the mega bulls are promising it. I mean, one of the mega traders in MicroStrategy basically said, no, it's a lock. They're definitely included based on a puff of air, nothing. In my view, if MicroStrategy is not included in September, which it's not going to be. I mean, if they were going to announce it, they would have already announced it, right? And so if they're going to be included, and maybe I'm going to be wrong on this, that's definitely possible. And then you guys are going to come on the video and say, Cryptoviser, you were wrong. I will take that because I'm never going to be always right. And it doesn't matter whether I'm always right. The market only cares whether I'm right. And so I think that I don't know how it's going to be confirmed, but because the MicroStrategy bulls will say, oh, well, they haven't made an announcement that they're not being included, so we're just going to have to wait till October. I think there is going to be some type of clarity that they're not getting included, that they were not approved for September, and that is going to just puff of air that's in this positive MNAV on the MicroStrategy price. I think we're going to see the price crater because everything is just anticipating more debt purchases, more Bitcoin purchases, more at the market sales, more S&P 500 inclusion. And the idea behind the S&P 500 inclusion is that when a stock is included in the S&P 500 or any index for that matter, anybody who's invested in the index is effectively invested whatever portion of MicroStrategies in that portfolio. And so that's constant buying, constant buy pressure and all of that. But that's if they're included. There's no confirmation that they will be, and I don't think that they are going to be because there's been no proof that MicroStrategy has an even cash flowing or revenue generating business saying, well, Bitcoin per share. Guys, this is gibberish. Nobody believes it besides the MicroStrategy mega bulls. And so puff of air. I mean, S&P 500 may actually come out with an announcement like, there has been no confirmation. We're trying to dispel rumors that are manipulating the markets. There has been no conversation about this. We have not made any official announcements about any moves or anything like that. Oh my God, if that happened, $200 overnight. Overnight, 50% drop. But people are going to say, but Cryptoviser MicroStrategy is going to follow the price of Bitcoin. Well, guys, Bitcoin 50% drop too. Because what has been holding up Bitcoin this whole cycle? MicroStrategy. They're the main buyer in the market. And so if MicroStrategy craters, the fear across the industry and the fact that like people are so, I don't know, the sentiment is so bullish. And by the way, like arrogantly bullish, where like if I say right now, oh, we're going lower in price. And if we go up $300, people are in the comments, Cryptoviser, you're an idiot. We went higher. And it's like, I'm not talking about day to day or minute by minute or hour to hour. I'm talking about the macro scale of where we're at. Whether I sell at the tippy top or 5% off the top or 10% off the top or 20% off the top, am I in profit or am I not in profit? And that's the question I go back to with all these people that are waiting to sell for 150,000 versus 125,000. It's like, how underwater are they that they don't even see that profit is profit and that risk is risk? But it's happening, guys. It's really, really happening. And the Federal Reserve, I mean, literally the Federal Reserve could have said the most bearish thing and the bulls would turn into something bullish. I mean, even with MicroStrategy, the fact that 2 weeks after Strategy said that they're not going to sell on the open market unless there's over 2.5 MNAV and then they reverse it, there's bulls who are like, well, let me explain why this is bullish. And it's like, they're going to turn anything into bullish. Like we could drop by 50% and they'll say, well, this is a great buy time. And it's like, what were you saying 2 weeks ago when we were 100% higher than where we are, right? So the markets only care if you're right. And on this channel, we have been so right about so many things. We called the top of the market in 2021. We called the rotation into the bear market in 2022. We called the not the FTX collapse, but we called the market crash to the day. We didn't know what was going to cause the crash, but we knew there was a crash coming. And so a lot of people are saying, Cryptoviser, you're an idiot. No way, no way, no way. Well, okay. But listen, now with altcoins, this is a whole different story because a lot of altcoins, they have utility and it seems like behind the scenes, they're getting integrated at a very high level like Chainlink. Chainlink Reserve announced they accumulated 41,000 Link coins as of the end of August. The Chainlink Reserve now holds 150,770 Link coins. And the Chainlink Reserve is designed to support the long-term growth and sustainability of the Chainlink network by accumulating Link using off-chain revenue from large enterprises adopting Chainlink and on-chain revenue from service usage. Now, what's very interesting here is, number one, while you see a lot of crypto ecosystems taking the funds that they do have in the form of a treasury or a reserve or a development fund, and they are milking it dry. I mean, we're seeing this in a lot of ecosystems. We're going to talk about XRP in a minute, but XRP, right? Ripple is selling XRP on the open market every single month, and they said they're not going to stop. But meanwhile, the XRP army is like, oh, but Cryptoviser, as soon as we get an XRP ETF, we are going to the moon, supply shock. And it's like, there is no supply shock. There's 40 billion XRP coins that Ripple wants to offload. And if Wall Street's buying, they're going to be buying it directly from Ripple, not from you, not from the open market. And so there can be no supply shock. But that ecosystem, they have their headphones on very loud and they're not listening to anything, right? We have Cardano. For years, they've been draining the development treasury, through different funding mechanisms, and they have nothing to show for it. I mean, hundreds or thousands at this point of projects have been funded, and there's very few that actually are even close to successful. And so it's like, what we're seeing is a lot of draining of reserves, draining of treasuries in certain ecosystems. And for me, those ecosystems, they are beyond bearish, right? Because you can't keep draining and not showing anything for it when you have other ecosystems that are actually earning revenue, like Chainlink. And this is also brings me to the point of like, what large enterprises are adopting Chainlink that they're able to acquire 150,000 links so quickly? right? $4 million. This clearly means that the chain is operating, that they're making money on the chain, they're making revenue from on-chain services, and they're not draining the treasury and milking it dry for every last drop and not producing anything. To me, it seems like they actually do have some pretty big partnerships that we just maybe don't know about just yet, that is increasing the activity within the Chainlink ecosystem. Very different than what we're seeing in a lot of these legacy cryptos that everybody just wants to pump, but don't have any fundamentals. And so Chainlink also talked about this ISO compliance nonsense that we're about to talk about with XRP in just a second. But before we go there, make sure you guys give this video an absolutely free thumbs up if you like this kind of content. We upload every single day of the year, so make sure you guys are subscribed. Sometimes we do deep dives into individual crypto projects or stocks or investments. And sometimes we talk about the macro like we're doing today, everything all at once. Chainlink said that they're excited that Chainlink is now the industry's first data and interoperability oracle to achieve ISO 27001 and SOC 2 compliance. This is a major step towards unlocking in-production use cases with the world's largest financial institutions and governments. These certifications thoroughly validate that multiple Chainlink Oracle services meet rigorous security, availability, and confidentiality standards. Officially certified services include Chainlink Interoperability Protocol, price feeds, and smart data. This establishment of the secure standards across data and cross-chain interoperability and beyond is critical to unlocking the next wave of on-chain finance, where tens of trillions in real-world assets are tokenized on-chain and seamlessly transacted by the world's leading institutions. And so I saw this and I'm like, wait, ISO 27001 and SOC 2, this is not what I keep seeing from XRP Army that continues to say, but Cryptoviser, XRP is the only ISO 2022 compliance chain. And by the way, they've been saying this since 2017. And it's like, we're like literally 7 years after that. And no other crypto has gotten involved or done anything like that. Well, we're now hearing from ex-Ripple developer who's refuting claims that XRP is ISO 20022 compliance. I'm just going to call it ISO compliant, okay? You guys get it. There's a number there. So what in the XRP is going on here? A new debate has emerged regarding XRP's involvement with ISO compliance. The CEO of Digital Ascension Group claimed that XRP recognized the importance of ISO early on. He argued that this forward-thinking approach allowed XRP to become a key player in financial transactions, processing billions of dollars annually. I wouldn't say that they're a key player in financial transactions. I would say that they have financial transactions and they may be a key player in certain markets, but globally, billions is like tiny compared to the trillions that is actually moving, within other like ecosystems or financial systems. However, a former Ripple developer dismissed these claims, stating that XRP never had anything to do with ISO compliance. Well, XRP Army, what is going on here? And by the way, I don't remember any XRP official statements about this ISO compliance. And I've been saying for you, literally earlier in 2025, people were saying, I think on my channel or on social media somewhere, where they were making their own videos. I don't remember exactly where, but they were like, XRP is the only crypto that's going to be compliant in November, and therefore the rest of crypto is done. And I was like, how like much of a maximalist and in euphoria do you have to be to not understand that literally no crypto has talked about this? I haven't heard any regulatory officials talk about it, any government officials talking about it, this ISO compliance nonsense. And to think that XRP would be the only crypto that's involved in it, and meanwhile, Ripple has never even talked about it. And I don't even think Ripple needs to use XRP. Maybe that's why they're offloading their XRP anyway. But anyway, let's get back to this. While XRP does not comply with ISO 2022, RippleNet does. RippleNet, Ripple's payment network, which by the way, does not use XRP, right? There's two different things. There's the XRP ledger and there's RippleNet. Most of Ripple's customers are on RippleNet, and therefore they don't need to use XRP. By the way, I'm drinking iced coffee today. What are you guys drinking? Delicious. In May of 2022, the company became the first blockchain-focused org to join the ISO standard body. RippleNet fully integrates with digital global standard, allowing it to connect with banks and financial institutions. Ripple's focus on ISO compliance with RippleNet makes it easier for financial institutions to adopt the network. This enables seamless interaction between RippleNet and other systems. But again, not XRP. Ripple, different. Again, XRP Army. First of all, I think the XRP Army are just legacy holders. I don't think there's like new investors from this cycle or even since the last that have been investing in XRP. But there, like, why would I be wanting to invest or look to invest or research investing in a coin that the company behind that coin is looking to dump it at a very, very rapid pace every single month? It's going to take years for them to get rid of all their XRP. Now, obviously, this doesn't have any impact on the price right now, but when Wall Street gets involved, maybe it will. But anyway, back to ISO. So this is the actual tweet thread from August of 2025. This user said, before any other crypto, XRP prioritized something most of the industry overlooked: ISO compliance. Today, that decision pays off as the network processes more than $434 billion in transactions every day. ISO is one of the most significant advantages in, guessing there's more to that. Let's see if we can pull this tweet up so we can see the whole convo. Okay, yeah. So it says ISO 2022 is one of the most significant advantages in modern finance, yet it's still misunderstood by much of the crypto space. Many projects focus on building technology without addressing how to connect with the existing financial system. ISO provides the bridge. No, it doesn't. The world's by the way, Chainlink is the bridge. This idea that XRP is the only ecosystem in crypto that had the intelligence to do this, I feel like shows the intelligence of the XRP army, because there's 2 million cryptocurrencies, something like that. And you think that none of them thought about this and whether this is important? You don't think that you guys get it. My viewers get it. Like, this is complete and utter cope that we are at the top of the market, that XRP is going to continue to be sold by the company that's developing the protocol that uses RippleNet, not XRP. And by the way, for years, I was even a bull for XRP, saying, no, they're going to change and they're going to force usage of XRP. That hasn't happened. The world's largest banks have already been using this ISO standard. He talks about what it is. Ripple is positioned to play a central role in tokenizing traditional financial systems, an opportunity measured in the tens of trillions of dollars. No, Ripple is not positioned for that. Ripple is a payment network, not a tokenization network. There's no NFTs on it. There's no smart contracts on the network. This is complete hogwash. The only real world asset currently that's on XRP is the RLUSD, and I don't even know if it's on XRP's ledger. Anyway, he says this goes far beyond payments. XRP could serve as infrastructure for banks to use to tokenize and transfer massive volumes of assets, enabling faster settlement, lower costs, and greater interoperability across global markets. Yeah, JP Morgan is going to use XRP because it's ISO compliant versus JPM's own 15 blockchains they have. Guys, give me a break. Anyway, so I'm sure you guys kind of know where I stand on this. It's bullshit. But anyway, Matt Hamilton, who's a former engineer over with Ripple, right? Head of development at this previously with Arbitrum, Protocol Labs, BitTensor, and Ripple. I don't know when he worked at Ripple, but it's within the last 10 years. He said XRP did not prioritize ISO whatsoever. There is literally nothing in the XRP ledger codebase or network that has anything at all to do with ISO 20022. It has been entirely a charade perpetuated by scammers like yourself. Whoa, shots fired, man. So, I mean, for me, this is very clear. But I'm sure that the XRP army will say, no, Matt he's with Arbitrum, so he's a bear now. He's just bitter, all this nonsense. Instead of just looking and saying, guys, this has been a charade for years. Literally, since I've been involved in like learning about crypto and investing in crypto, they've been talking about this ISO nonsense. nobody outside of the XRP army believes it. And now it's confirmed that it's all BS. So with that, it is what it is. And that brings us to Ethereum. Because again, we're going through a ton of like different categories of topics in this video. But the question I keep getting is, well, even if Bitcoin's at the top, is Ethereum at the top with all of these companies buying ETH, right? Because it's true, right? We've seen Bitmine, SharpLink, Ether Machine, ETHZilla, Bit Digital, BTC. They're all buying large quantities of Ethereum at a very rapid pace. Tom Lee is explaining how $6.6 billion in Ethereum generates $200 million in net income. And this is, again, very important to pay attention to when we're comparing Bitcoin treasury companies and Ethereum treasury companies, because Bitcoin is like a non-productive asset, right? It doesn't cash flow, and Ethereum can. And so right now they have about $7 billion in Ethereum, Bitmine, which is Tom Lee's company. And so he's talking about $200 million in net income. I mean, that is a pretty good number, because they could buy more with it. They can give a dividend. They could do both. They could grow out their ecosystem. Think about what they can buy with $200 million, right? They can buy companies. They can buy infrastructure plays. They can buy payment networks. And that's just in 1 year. And if they don't take out more debt, let's listen to exactly what Tom Lee says. This is on the podcast, The Compound and Friends. I've never heard of it, but Tom Lee is there, and we're going to listen. Let's listen to what Tom Lee says. And by the way, don't forget to give this video an absolutely free thumbs up, even if you believe in ISO 20022. Let's listen to Tom Lee.
Ethereum pays a 3% native yield if you stake it. So the 6.6 billion held of Ethereum is over $200 million in net income right now. The day we turn on staking, not only is there no debt on Bitminer, it's going to pay you $200 million a year in dividends.
And what do you do with that? Buy more Ether?
Now, let me pause right here for a second, because what he just said was really, really important for you guys to understand. Bitmine is not in debt, and they don't have these debt facilities like MicroStrategy, right? MicroStrategy started by not creating these I think they were just selling shares on the open market to buy, and then they started these convertible bonds, which is debt, and then they started these debt facilities like Stride, Strike, Stretch, and Strife. Bitmine Immersion Technologies and SharpLink, from what I can gather, most of this is at the market sales, right? That's how they're raising the money, or they're just creating more shares and then buying it from these large whales. And so it is very interesting what he's saying is like, they don't necessarily, and again, this is where we are in the cycle. They are extracting liquidity from the markets. The markets are so bullish on Ethereum and Bitcoin and crypto in general that they're willing to buy his stock knowing he's selling it on the open market to go buy Ethereum, because they're like, well, it won't matter the dilution, because if Ethereum goes higher, then I gain it. And it makes sense that thesis. And I'm not saying that it's a bad thesis. I'm just thinking about where we are in the cycle. And I think that it's just value extraction. We've been talking about this all year in 2025. Value extraction. It started with the meme coins, then it happened with the Bitcoin treasury companies, then it happened with meme coins and celebrity coins again, and now it's happening with Ethereum. They are extracting the value from the market to then go and buy the Ethereum. And so in a bear market and going into the next bull market, they are going to be able to cash flow, and they don't really have to worry about debt, because they don't have to buy the Ether with debt. Like in a bear market, they would probably have to buy it with debt, because in a bear market, it's hard to sell shares on the market without cratering the price of the stock, because there's not enough liquidity, hence the bear market. And so it is very interesting to hear what he's saying, right? They're taking their asset, Ether, monetizing it. And he's just talking about native staking, right? If you go through DeFi staking, you can earn even more than 2, 3, 4%. But 3%, $200 million. in 1 year, just based on that, I mean, in a quarter of a year, he's going to have $50 million every quarter, every 3 months, $50 million in rewards. And so even if he takes 25 million, buys more Ethereum, and takes the other 25 million and buys infrastructure, maybe AI data centers, maybe companies that are infrastructure plays like wallet providers or DeFi ecosystems and stuff like that, this can create a huge powerhouse. And the difference between what Tom Lee is doing and what MicroStrategy and the Bitcoin companies are doing is they don't have restrictions. Like, I have never heard Tom Lee say we're only going to buy Ethereum, that's it. And so the idea that he's not going to buy other companies or buy infrastructure plays or whatever they buy, they're going to buy something to enhance the company beyond just Ether treasury. And this could make it big, 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 big. But we'll have to wait and see. Let's continue listening to what he says.
Or we might just pay it out as cash dividends.
Where does that 3% native yield come from? Is that gas fees
It's-
that
yeah, so
users
it's
are
called-
paying to use ETH?
Well, it's called proof of stake. So Ethereum doesn't have a proof of work model where you're competing for a block reward. It's saying if you hold ETH and you agree to stake it and validate transactions, you earn the staking fee, which is 3%.
Okay. So that's
And by the way, I think this is a CNBC host. I think he's on CNBC, maybe Fox Business. But anyway, that's who he is, interviewing Tom Lee. So you can hear what Tom Lee's saying. And this is different than MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy cannot cash flow unless they do something with the Bitcoin. But anything they do with the Bitcoin puts the Bitcoin at risk. And that's an issue, right? Where Tom Lee, they can do the same things that MicroStrategy is doing with the Bitcoin, with the Ethereum, but they also have this extra really positive note. So I'm not bearish necessarily. I just know that we are going to go into a bear market at some point in crypto, and that's going to pull everything down, everything. And so if everything gets pulled down, I want to have cash on the side to buy back in. And to do that, you need to secure profits, or you just hold it forever. That's definitely a strategy and a thesis. I just don't think it's a good strategy and thesis for this channel. This channel is about making money in the markets, knowing when to enter, knowing when to exit. And, you know, sometimes for some people, they don't want that risk. They don't want to sell and then have the potential upside. And they're okay having the potential downside because they have a much longer time horizon. You know, maybe they're in their 30s and they're not planning on retiring till their 50s or 60s. So they have, you know, a few decades to kind of deal with the volatility in the markets. But yeah, guys, there's a lot going on. I mean, SharpLink, they just announced buyback of their stock, but they're also like selling stock on the open market to buy more Ethereum. But I think that these companies are positioning for a bear market because you guys have to understand, why would SharpLink be authorizing stock buybacks when they're selling shares on the market to buy more Ether? They're doing it now when everything is great. That way the shareholders are not crying and bitching in a bear market when we're at the bottom. And SharpLink is like, okay, now we're going to put money and buy back stock. They're going to like, whoa, 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 whoa. The price of the stock keeps going down and the price of crypto keeps going down. Wait, right? It's going to be the opposite sentiment than where we are today. And so they're preparing in case the MNAV goes under 1, that they can buy back the stock. An arb trade. They're basically trading their own stock. This is something that we haven't really seen in the markets. I mean, we have seen stock buybacks, but not based on MNAVs, right? And so we're seeing that with MicroStrategy, with SharpLink, with BitMine, and they will have the money. I mean, they're potentially saying we're going to do stock buybacks of $1.5 billion. But you also have to think, like, some of that money may come from the rewards that they're getting from Ether staking. So there's a lot going on in the markets, and I'm not saying that things are bearish generally, forever, but we are going to go through a corrective phase. And I believe that, you know, what Anna Wong, the chief economist over at Bloomberg, is saying here, that people will turn anything into bullish or turn anything into bearish, but the market only cares about the truth, right? And so Chairman Powell did not say that they are going to cut rates, and he didn't say that they weren't going to. So there is a possibility that he's going to cut. But I don't think that that's going to push the price up Because let's go to the Bitcoin chart. I'm going to show you this and then we're going to end the video. Because this is probably one of the most important things that a lot of people don't fully get and don't fully understand in these markets. Okay. Again, in 2019, we had a lot of issues in the repo markets and the overnight lending markets. And then at the beginning of 2020, the Federal Reserve kept saying, no, we're not going to cut rates. We're not going to cut rates. We're not going to cut rates. And then they came in an emergency meeting right here, March 7th, 2020. They said, we're cutting rates, in an emergency meeting, whew, market dropped. And it doesn't look like it's that much, right? But I want you guys to see, we went from 10,000 down to 5,000. That's a 50% drop in 1 month. 50% drop in Bitcoin in 1 month. And so a 50% drop from where we are, 114 divided by 2, $57,000. $57,000. And so is that going to occur? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But again, the market can smell these things. And when the market's going up, this is a big indicator because remember in January, December, January, February, the Federal Reserve said, we're not going to cut rates. We're not going to cut rates. The economy's doing great. The economy's doing great. And the market kept going higher and higher and higher. Bull trap. And then we dropped 50%. Now, granted, we went up after that, but we still dropped 50%. That was when they started cutting rates last time. And so this indicator that, oh, well, they're going to cut rates and this is money printing, it's not. Money printing is different than cutting rates. And the money printing that occurred in 2020 started flowing in the second half of the year. It was printed and started flowing out, but most of the money started actually flowing in September. This is also around the time when Michael Saylor started buying Bitcoin, and then we started going up. With that, that's my analysis of where we're at in the markets and that the Federal Reserve has definitely set a bull trap because the bulls just are instantly bullish about everything, even though the conversation from Powell was pretty neutral and didn't really change anything from the fact of what they said last month and the month before that. Now, this doesn't mean that they're not going to cut rates. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But I don't think it's going to matter because where we are in the cycle is where we are in the cycle. And where we are in the halving is where we are in the halving. Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to hit subscribe and give the video a free thumbs up. Thanks for watching. Check out my other videos on the channel. And I'll see you on the next video. Invest responsibly, do your own research, and crypto on.